I saw a picture that was pornographic, and I want to talk to you about it. And then see what the kid says.
Thanks for joining us for another Techless Talk, where we explore how consumer technology shapes our relationships, health, and culture.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another Techless Talk. So I've been doing these talks for 3 months now, and this conversation is my absolute favorite one I've had to date. So just last week, I had one of my best friends call me with this question, and it's one of the most important questions that we get asked here at Techless. What do I do when I catch my son or my daughter using pornography? Or a lot of times people ask, what do I do if my kid comes to me and tells me that they've been looking at porn? So this video is a response to that. It's a paradigm-forming approach built on years of experience, and I promise you it's going to be a blessing to every single parent watching this, even if your kids aren't that age yet or if they're past that age. If you can courageously apply this, you will be showing your kids deep, deep love. We get this question all the time at Techless. I've caught my son, I've caught my daughter looking at pornography. What in the world do I do?
Yeah.
How do I even start?
Yeah.
Because that just terrifies me.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think it terrifies all of us. I think the place I like to begin is this. What you found out is really bad news, but that you found out is really good news. It is so much better that a parent would actually discover that a son or daughter has been looking at porn than for that to go undiscovered or for that kid to continue. Because the longer a son or daughter is looking at it, usually the worse the problem's going to get. So, I mean, if a parent has discovered it because the son or daughter let them know, all the better. Anytime your son or daughter is honest with you about what they've been looking at or what they've been struggling with, the go-to for a parent, and you can look yourself in the mirror and practice this over and over again with your spouse, is like, I'm so glad you told me.
I'm so glad
Thank you for telling me.
Okay.
You know? Because it takes courage. It's a hard thing. I mean, so all the emotion you just described that a parent feels, like, well, kids are feeling that too. Like the fact that their parent just found out they've been looking at this stuff, that's really hard. So acknowledge that. And a lot of times when a kid shares a little bit, they're testing the waters. So there may be more they're going to share. And so that first response is really key to helping your kid to open up and trust that they can tell you more. Like I struggled with porn for a long time. And the first person I told, I didn't tell them everything. I told them a little. I thought, like, this is the most palatable stuff, you know, like, so from there, it was really helpful when the response was good, I knew I could trust them with more.
You've said, I'm so glad you told me. I'm be grateful for that moment. And then what in the world happens? I mean, what's next?
Yeah. Well, so maybe we should go back because a lot of times parents, it's not that the kid told them. They open up the device and they look at it, you know, there's something that's left open, or they look at the history and they realize, oh crap, my son or daughter's been looking at this stuff for a while. Yeah. And so that means that the parent has to broach the topic with the kid. And in that, I have 2 pieces of advice for that. The first is don't do it right away. Take some time to breathe, take some time to process. Because a lot of times what parents do is when they go to talk to their kid, what they're trying to do, they're not really trying to help their kid at that point. They're trying to resolve their own pain and their own angst. Wow. And that's just too much for the kid. The kid's already wrestling with pornography. They don't need to also then bear their parents' angst. You might even want to call your spouse if you've got a trustworthy mentor, somebody you can reach out to just to get support for you. So then the second thing is just you have to go talk to them.
You have to?
You have to.
You can't brush it under the rug.
No, I wish I could say that you could. You know, but I've talked to too many parents who thought it was a phase. I thought, well, all kids get curious. I brushed it under the rug. And like I said, if you don't address it, it's probably going to get worse. So I think being as straightforward as possible. Don't ask questions you already know the answer to. That's just a setup for your kid to lie. Don't put them in a position where they're going to lie.
Don't put them in this trap. Hey, have you looked at this? Just tell them, hey, I've seen this. We need to talk.
So how's the internet going for you? That's just sowing mistrust. You just go to him and you say, hey, listen, I opened up your computer today, or I picked up your phone and I saw a picture that was pornographic, and I want to talk to you about it. And then see what the kid says.
Yeah, that takes courage.
It does take courage. It takes courage. But again, at this point, the fact that you have to trust the fact that is good news. So if we reframe the idea that what they're looking at is harmful to them, whether they know it or not, and some kids do. Some kids know that they would be looking at this.
Probably most kids know. Well, maybe the younger ones don't, but I'd say most of them have this thing within them that they know it's not right. Even if they hadn't even been taught it, you just know.
Yeah. And they'll simultaneously, for many of them, it'll be confusing because it will feel good. Yeah. You know, it's not like I put my hand on the burner and I know it was wrong because it hurt. I open this up and I don't want people to find this out, but I actually am really curious and I really want to look at it more. Mm-hmm. And so I think for a parent to recognize that's a hard place for a kid to be, but it's an important place for a parent to enter in.
You initiate the conversation. You said, hey, I found this. And then what's next?
So I would suggest that a lot of times at this point, a kid will lie. And not because they're a bad kid, but on some level, they're going to want to minimize what you just found out. When we feel ashamed, we lie. We try to divert. I mean, right? Go back to for every one of us, like we want to protect ourselves. And sometimes we want to protect our parents. I don't want to get in trouble. So no, it was just that one thing. Timmy sent it to me. I'm not going to look at it again. I didn't even like it.
Especially if you confront them, they'll be like, oh, it's just this tiny little thing. And that's not the reality, but that's what they want to present.
That's the other reason it's important for the parents to just tell them what they already know. So if I say, what's going on the internet, and they lie, now I have to address, okay, you lied. And
double shame.
Yeah. And honestly, I think for anybody in that situation, I'm not too worried about somebody who lies in that moment. I think it's a defense mechanism. I don't think it means something about our kid's character. I think it means they're scared. And then next you want to just do some fact finding with them, so some open-ended questions about, talk to them about how you found this, how are you feeling about it, how long has this been going on, what kinds of stuff have you been looking at? Those kinds of questions.
It's very statistical.
And when I say fact finding, I want to be clear, you're not a private investigator looking to convict a criminal.
Yeah.
You are like a geologist and you're trying to just brush some dirt gently away from some bones so you can find what's really happening.
And if you really start hitting some walls, just take a little break and then pick up the brush again later.
Yeah. And one of the things I like to tell my kids, like what I want from you is honesty. That's what's most important, because when you're truthful with me, we have a relationship. If you're pretending or you're lying or there's something going on for me you don't talk to me about, then we don't have a relationship there. And I just want to be with you in this. So if a parent has a history with pornography and they know personally some of its, its effects, they can say something like, the reason I'm asking you is not to get you in trouble. I just know that pornography can feel good, but it can be really destructive. And so I'm asking because I want to help you.
All of a sudden you just made that conversation not so much, they're not the only ones in the hot seat. You're being vulnerable yourself.
One thing we might consider is this. So for most parents watching, they could probably think back to moments in their life, whether it was a sexual issue or some other issue that they walked and lived with alone.
Yeah.
So think back to those moments, and what would it have been to you to have a trusting, caring adult, maybe a mom or dad, who really was invested in you and wasn't just trying to get you to do the right thing, but really authentically wanted to help you through it. Yeah. So with the fact finding, I think one of the places that a parent would be wise to go, and let's just assume for the moment that the kid, the son or daughter, is open at least to some degree to talking with it.
So there's a gateway for conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
A parent really needs at this point to begin getting more information about, is this a significant problem? Is there a habit that's formed? Is there an addiction that's going on here? Do I need to get extra help for my son or daughter? So we want to explore, I'd like to think about it in three areas. One is how long has this been going on? Second is when it happens, kind of how long is it happening? Are you sitting down for 15 minutes or are you spending, all day doing this? Yeah. And the third is, and this is a hard one, but what kind of stuff are you watching? Just like, is it heterosexual porn? Is it gay porn? Is it involve stuff that's making you feel queasy or awkward? We just want to get a general idea. And the reason for asking those kind of digging into those three things is because the longer it's been going on, the more time they're spending doing it, and the more intense the stuff they're looking at, higher indicator that they're actually going to need some outside help.
Yeah.
So if this just started last week, and I've looked 3 times for 5 minutes each, let's keep walking as father and son or mom and daughter or something for now, and let's see where this goes. Mm-hmm. But if this has been going on for 3 years, and the stuff I started with is nowhere near the stuff I'm looking at now, that's a progression that we probably need to talk to somebody who's got more experience.
What does it look like after that very first conversation?
So it's never a one-time conversation.
Yes.
So if I haven't been talking to my son or daughter about that and I discovered pornography, that's a great time to say, we're going to do a reset. And so I'll say to I'd recommend a parent say to the son or daughter at that point, hey, this is actually a really hard part of life. We've talked about sports, we've talked about finances, we've talked about table manners, we talk about being polite, we talk about academics.
Yeah. We
haven't really talked much about sexuality. And so
but let's change that. Let's make that part of the conversation.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this on a regular basis.
Okay.
Depending on the relationship with the kid, depending on their age, they might be like, oh, you're kidding me. And you're like, I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, the 14-year-old will roll their eyes. Not really look forward to the conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. But here's the crazy thing. Research shows that most parents undervalue their influence in their kids' lives, their teens' lives especially. Okay. And most kids have a higher view of their parents' opinion than parents believe, especially when it comes to things like sexuality. So parents should really be encouraged, like, don't look at their outward kind of response to talking to mom or dad. Like, it's hard to talk about. It's hard for you to talk about too, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, I talk about this for a living. It's hard to talk to my kids about it.
Okay. So even in the midst of that conversation, you said research shows that even though I don't feel like my kids are necessarily listening to me, and even though the kids don't act like that there's a way more value and connection going on behind the scenes, and we're both craving that. And it's really a good, healthy thing, even though it doesn't feel that way necessarily.
Yeah. And honestly, for some parents, this will be a point where some of the fault lines in their relationships with their kids will come to the forefront. If there's a lack of trust that's already there, if there's contention that's ongoing in the home, if the son or daughter does not open up to mom and dad and doesn't talk, this is not going to be like a magic pill. There might be other issues that need to be faced at this point. So, but assuming that there is a level of trust, and assuming that the son or daughter does have a pretty good relationship with mom or dad, this is just a new avenue to begin talking about. Mm-hmm. I might say, well, once a week, why don't we meet? What's a good time where we can just chat for 10 or 15 minutes max? And then we set up that time and make it good. And what else can we make? How can we make it more pleasant? Let's go out and grab a coffee, or we'll get an ice cream cone together as we do this. Something so it's not, this isn't a miserable experience. This is a time for us to connect. Yes, right, exactly. That's well put.
We're going to talk about.
I'm going to shine a big bright light at you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you these 5 questions.
Okay. So donuts help satiate, make chill. It calms the conversation down.
But I think also for a parent, be willing to ask the direct questions, because again, it's hard for you to talk about. It's hard for your kid to talk about. So you broach the topic. Hey, so how's it been with pornography this week? Have you looked? Yeah. How often? Just unpack it for me a little bit. The other thing I'd say is, if you're not a scheduler, if you're kind of let's just try to do it once a week, just pick a good time. Don't do it on the way to something where we're going to be around a lot of guests and, so, okay, we're going to grandma's house and I'm going to ask you the way to grandma's house. Cause now
he walked in flustered.
Yeah. Now I got this shame hangover and I'm walking in and grandma's oh, it's good to see my little baby. And you're just I just want to be alone. Yeah. So find a good time and talk to your kid about that. When is a good time for we want to make it a safe chance for a lot of kids. They'll just want some space after that. We'll talk about it. And then I want to go play Nintendo for a bit, or on my it's like an old funny dad. I'm getting on my Atari. What's my son's there? His Switch.
Kids don't play Ataris anymore.
That's exactly right.
Well, actually, some of the really cool kids play Ataris, but it's retro,
But something so that the son or daughter can go and they can have some space by themselves if they need that. And if they don't, what do they need? So it's really about just kind of walking with them through that. The other thing I want to encourage at this point is for parents, and again, depending on the kid's age, to really, with the kids' buy-in, to begin looking for patterns. So when is this typically happening? When are you typically watching porn? Is it after school when you're here by yourself? So think about time of day, day of week. Yeah. Also, what are the circumstances surrounding it? Because a lot of times kids are going to porn, not just because there's something going on in their life. They're stressed, they're anxious, they're lonely.
It's not about the porn.
It's not about the porn. Yeah. Once a kid has some sense of it's usually when I'm studying because I feel stressed about school. Mm. All right, well now we're dealing with the human problem of feeling stressed about school.
Which is a little less shameful.
Yeah, and so let's start dealing with that. So I was talking to a kid several years ago, and part of what he started recognizing was that it was exactly his issue.
Yeah. You're connecting the dots for him.
Yeah, and he was connecting the dots because we were just asking questions and trying to dig together. He was I think it's usually when I'm doing homework, I feel a lot of pressure to do well in school, and I don't do that well. And so I was well, what would help you in the midst of that? So he came up on his own. Every hour, I stop for 10, 15 minutes. And I go out and I shoot my basketball or I play my guitar for a little bit just to decompress. And then I go back in and I study some more.
So that stress level never hits past the critical moment there.
And the more buy-in that the kid has, the more able they are then to kind of follow up, explore what's going on for them and make adjustments as they move forward.
What are the odds? First of all, the odds are high that this is going to be a conversation that almost every parent's going to have if you hadn't had it already. So, what would you tell us to leave with here?
I think the most hopeful thing is, we should probably say this at the outset, but the primary goal is not your kids not looking at porn. The primary goal is raising kids who love well. They know what real love is, and they're receiving that kind of love, and they're trying to learn to love like that.
Yeah. Josh, wrote a book called Treading Boldly. I would love for you to take a minute, unpack the book.
Yeah, so the goal of the book has pretty much three different things. The first is pornography it's going to find your kids. It's not a matter if your kids are looking for it. We live in a pornographic culture. In some way, it's going to intersect your kids' lives. So parents need to get in the game with their kids. The second is, if we're going to get in the game well and be able to love them well, we got to take a look at our own sexual stories. And this is probably the most courageous part of the whole book. But the book helps to walk parents through, what do I need to look at? How far do I need to go? What if I'm struggling with this stuff myself? We address all that in the book. And the third is kind of what I was talking about with the area of love. This is not a book about what we're against. It's primarily a book about what we are for. And so it hopefully helps you as a parent to figure out, what are the real values of my home, my family, and how can I fold this conversation and these topics underneath that?
Thanks for tuning in. I hope that was a blessing for you. We made this video because Techless takes a seemingly radical stance on transparency. Big tech often boasts about and advertises about privacy, which is valuable. We value your privacy. But the dark side of incognito mode is that it really encourages and incentivizes good-natured people to form destructive and selfish habits that tear apart the fabric of their most meaningful relationships. Google fundamentally disagrees with us. They pulled one of our initial apps from the Play Store because they don't believe that parents should have the default right to monitor kids' activity. We do. But here's why. Techless believes in transparency within loving relationships. And because of this, there's opportunities for parents to have conversations like the one we just talked about, instead of just choosing the easier path to turn a blind eye to all life-destroying addictions. And it's in these super difficult moments when grace-filled, tough conversations are necessary. And we want to do what we can, everything we can, to support parents and kids to use that opportunity. It's a good thing to deepen their relationships. Not only are we one of the only tech companies out there with practical products that simply work in this philosophy, but we're creating content for those who have been pushed to the side by big tech. So if this is something that resonates with you, please subscribe to our channel, visit techless.com to learn more about Wisephone, sign up for our newsletter, and let's walk on this journey together.